Welcome back, listeners and viewers, to another week of Education, the Teachers Talking Terror podcast, where myself, Mike,
and myself, Courtney,
are back to talk about week 2 of October. Another 7 movies. We actually had 7 movies on the slate this week,
did,
as opposed to 6 last week. And again, just to kind of give you a quick heads up of how the October marathon works is we watch a movie a day. We take our notes, we give each a grade, and then we convene like we are right now to talk about the episode. And we just quickly gloss over the 7 movies. We give it a grade, and at the end, we like have our class rank, like how we view them, and that's kind of our favorite parts because we're not always in tune, and that's okay.
Right. I feel like last year we were more in tune until like the last week, kind of. But last week was the first week, and we were both different.
Yeah. Well, like. And really, it was long legs that threw that all out of whack.
Yes.
Everything else was pretty. They weren't necessarily step by step, but long legs was low on your list, high on mine, which caused some internal shuffling. Let's see if that happens again this week.
Yeah.
So Sunday the 7th was a shuffle movie, and we ended up on, coincidentally enough, another Osgood Perkins horror film, his first, The Black Coat's Daughter. Came out 2015, starring Emma Roberts, Lucy Boynton, Lauren Holly, James Remar. It's a slow burn, a little slow, but too slow for you?
I loved it.
Oh, good. I
loved
did too.
Everything about this movie.
I did too. This one I came across.
Yeah.
I watched it on my own. I don't remember when, a couple of years ago. Maybe it was probably one of my Halloween marathons. Come across it, watched it, and I just was like, that movie is. Oh no, it was recommended to me. That's what it was. It was recommended to me. And I was like, that movie is perfect. Like this movie is so good. You've got this female boarding school, that kind of this like religious-y school, and they're leaving for Thanksgiving, and we've got two girls one doesn't want to go home, and because she's got a boyfriend, she thinks she might be pregnant. Like I won't say she's like a bad girl, but for a religious boarding school, she's definitely not your poster child.
Yeah, she's the one that was like sent there because her parents, I think, had some issues with her.
You got to be reformed. And she's like, I'm not changing here either. Okay. And the other one is, unfortunately, as educators, we know these kids.
Yeah.
They're the good kids that come from a no chance home. Mm-hmm. And the reason she's not going home for break is because her parents forgot she was there. Like, they're just not going to come get her.
And then we've got a third storyline as well.
That shows up a little later in the movie.
Yeah.
Not lately, but we've got another one, and this is where Emma Roberts pops in.
And this is where this movie about caused a divorce in the household. Casey comes out. He goes, "Who is that? She looks familiar." And I'm like, who is Emma Roberts?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you don't... Well, she looks familiar. I don't know who that is. I'm like... Okay, you can leave now. Like, I don't want you to watch it with me. Go.
Did you tell me, like, that's Eric Roberts' daughter?
No, I didn't. But I'm like, you probably know her from We're the Millers. And he's like, yeah, I do. I'm like, yeah. Yeah. That's who she is.
It's Julia Roberts' niece.
I love Emma Roberts.
Yeah, Emma Roberts is solid. She was in the lesser Scream film that we watched.
Yes.
Like Scream 4.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so we get this third storyline in there, Kat. So we've got Rose and Joan and Kat, which, whatever, they never really overlap. But as the movie goes on, you realize, like, there's this like urban legend that this boarding school is really like there's Satan worshipers there. And long story short, because we could go on a whole episode about this movie, is it Joan? It's been a while since I watched it.
Joan is the escapee from she's the escapee from the insane asylum. And then we've got Kat. Kat was the Rose died.
Yes.
And then Kat was the
Okay,
Oh my goodness.
so Rose, yeah, Rose is the one that thinks she might be pregnant.
Yes.
She's the Lucy Boynton character. So yeah,
Yes.
Rose is kind of your bad girl for a boarding school. Kat is the one that's forgotten, and then Joan is your Emma Roberts.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now, because again, it's their names don't matter, but their personalities
Right.
definitely do.
Yeah.
So, because nobody's staying back, so they tell Rose that, hey, Kat's gonna hang with you.
Yeah.
And so as Rose is because Rose is basically she's like a senior, Kat's a freshman.
Right.
So she's like, you do what you want, kid. I'm gonna do whatever. Well, Rose quickly finds out as we're seeing stuff with Kat that Kat's messed up. Like that there might be some truth to this Satan worshiping thing.
Kat's real messed up.
And Rose, like, this movie's so good.
It's
so good. I don't want to ruin it for anybody by bringing up how Joan figures in, but there's decent gore. There's good control of camera movements. Not really a ton of jump scares, but still some just images that are really unsettling. And long story short, it all comes together in a way that you really don't see coming.
No.
But when it does, you're like, oh, chef's kiss. Like that is like some movies will take this type of approach and it feels like it's just like a cheap way out of a film of like, oh, let's throw this curveball in there to make everything make sense. But you could tell this one was almost reverse engineered of like, I want to write a story where this happens and I want to back it up to where nobody sees it happening until we have to deliver it. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. But yeah, a lot of people die. A lot of people die in this one.
Yeah.
I'm glad you liked it because
I did.
Same writer director as Longlegs. It kind of has that same vibe of just
it does have that just spooky type vibe.
Yeah, I think Osgood Perkins he's got a feel like he's got a look for his films. This one definitely feels that look. 9 years old and he's still popping out movies like this. But no, I really, really like this movie. Highly recommend anybody go watch it. What did you grade it?
I gave it an A+.
I gave it an A+ as well. I gave it an A+ as well. I really, really like this movie. So I'm glad you reached out and said I can't find Blackcoat's Daughter. And I was like, hey, it's one word. And you're like, okay, I'm there. And so, yeah, we're off to a good start. A+ for both. Then Monday was a my pick, and I picked Behind the Mask: The Rise of Leslie Vernon, a movie that is really in 2006. This one I think is really underrated because what it does with the slasher genre is so different than anything I've seen before, and I've seen a lot of horror films. This movie exists in a reality where the slasher films are factual. Freddy, Jason, Michael Myers, Chucky, like all of those exist. Like all of that is reality. It's not film. It's not fiction. Those are real life serial killers. And the way they became serial killers is also true to life. So we're in a storytelling environment where supernatural is natural, and we have a college like film thesis group. They're putting this video together of they've reached out to Leslie Vernon. And they are doing a documentary on what it takes to be a serial killer. And so that it adds a lot of comedy to the film because when we watched there a couple of months ago, when we watched, what was that movie where they just followed they followed the killer around? Neither one of us really cared for it. In a violent nature, or of a violent nature, or something like that, where the camera was locked on the killer the entire time.
Yes. Okay.
This movie, it has a somewhat similar approach, but we are active in the film. Like it's not just the cameraman following. Like we are with the camera crew. Leslie's talking to us. He's telling us like why cardio is so important for a serial killer, because you have to walk while they're running. Like it really just takes all of these like serial killer, like slasher tropes and like plays them up as a joke of like,
Yeah.
you know, at one point, like his mentor is like, he's been in a hyperbaric chamber underground for like 5 days.
Right. And like, we're like, oh, when he first goes like, oh, I forgot to tell him to come out. We're like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. It's been like a few hours then. And then he's like, it's Thursday?
Yeah. Yeah. And
what?
it's just
like,
fun
how
because,
long have I been in here?
because when when you cut to like a Friday the 13th movie where Jason is buried, you know, and it's weeks, if not months, if not years later, it's like, okay, so it's just, it tries to, I don't want to say personify, because obviously we're talking about human characteristics anyway, but it just brings to life like all of the absurdities of a slasher film.
Mm-hmm.
And how they accomplish them, like slamming doors behind a person. He's like, oh, you just take some fishing line and a brick and you pull it, and it's just like it's just creative and it's funny.
Yeah.
But at the end, also at the same time, you've got this overarching story where, you know, they're following him as he's tracking this, you know, this virgin, his final girl. It's his legacy, et cetera, et cetera. But it also like evolves into like the movie then turns into that film.
Yes.
And I really like how they did it, where when we were watching the documentary behind the scenes stuff, it was filmed with like a camcorder, and then they switched over to film when they were showing like the cinema version of things. Yeah. I just really like this movie. I just keep rambling on about it. What did you think?
I really liked it as well. I feel like honestly, this just kind of explained, which is what you said. Like, this is the one that maybe you should watch and you'll understand all of the other things.
Yeah, it's like
happen.
It's fun because if you've seen a lot of slasher films, this movie like it pokes fun at them a little bit, but also it's still like respectful of them because they are his heroes. But if you haven't seen a lot of slasher films and you start with this one, you're probably going to find those slasher films a little humorous because you've been like let in on the secret. The movie has also got it's well respected because it's got a lot of like Robert Englund's in this movie. He played Freddy Krueger in the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. Like he was the Ahab character, like the psychiatrist. Kane Hodder's in this movie. He played Jason in like 4 movies. Zelda Rubinstein's the little tiny librarian. She was in Poltergeist. So it's like you've got a lot of.
She was so cute.
She is. She's adorable. But you've got a lot of like respected horror people that have been like, hey, I kind of like that idea. Let's run with it. It is. It's a fun movie. This is the kind of movie I think is like a perfect October movie because it's not scary, but it clearly is horror. And it's just, you can have fun with it. Like, you know, I'd much rather watch something like this than what like Freeform does, where like it's Halloween, everybody, let's watch Hocus Pocus. And I'm like, no, that's not really what I want to watch. I don't want to watch Hotel Transylvania. Like, but I'm not always necessarily. I'm not always necessarily in the mood for something with a lot of kill. It's like this is just kind of a nice bridge between the two. So, would you grade this one?
I gave this one an A.
I gave it an A as well. So fun times, A around the board. All right, so your choice was next. A movie I've watched a lot. I watched this movie a lot growing up. So
the next one was mine. All right, The Gate. So we've got this group of kids that was left at home, and they just unleash like these little demons.
These little claymation demons.
And they were so cute too. Oh my goodness. These little guys. There's no way they could have been demons. They were adorable. Like when I first saw the first one, I was like, it's so cute. Like it looks like a little hairless kitty.
It's like a potato with legs.
Yes. From this hole in their backyard. And it just starts to like take over everything. And like right at the end when you think like, oh, they've closed the hole and everything's gone, boom. It's back again. The big slimy,
Yeah, the big the big
worm,
demon.
not cute looking one. Yeah.
Right.
Um, this movie was suggested to me by a friend, and it was fun. Like, it's not, you can tell it's from the 80s.
It's
It's not gonna,
very, yeah, it's
yes,
very much
it's,
got an 80s feel to it. I mean, it's it fits all of those things that Grant, obviously you weren't
yeah,
alive in the 80s.
no, I wasn't even thought of.
You weren't even a thought in the 80s. I was born in 79, so
Yeah.
I lived through the decade. Um what makes a movie like this effective, especially if you're watching it around the time it came out, is that's what life in the 80s was like.
Mm.
You just left your kids at home.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, the sister's 15 and technically was, could cover, but I can't tell you how many times as a 10-year-old, 9-year-old, just left home.
Now it's like, oh, we'll be calling DCFS on
Yeah,
that.
you just leave them home.
Yeah.
Growing up, it was nothing to, like, the community pool was clear on the other side of town.
Yeah.
Like, I'm talking longer than that, like miles away. Still technically in town. You got to cross a 4-lane highway to get there. Parents were like, ride your bike. Just ride your bike.
You can go swimming today.
And kids, I mean, we're talking kids all over town. There were 4 grade schools in my hometown, and so you really only knew like a quarter of the kids you went to school with. But yeah, the pool was packed all day, every day. Bike racks galore outside. We're talking 4-lane highways, and parents are like, I don't feel like taking you to the pool. Here's a couple bucks. Take your towel. Ride your bike across town, across a 4-lane highway to the pool, and nobody batted an eye.
Yeah.
No one. So for a movie like this, where it's like kids are left home alone, they're not really,
just for a few hours, but like a weekend.
Yeah, like because watching it through like your eyes are like, who the heck leaves their kid home alone for a weekend? And you're like, well, you're not clearly from the 80s because it happened all the time.
But these little guys these little demons are searching for human sacrifices. So
it's like there was like 3 criteria.
Yes.
To like unlock all of this, and these 2 boys, Glenn and Terry.
Terry, yeah.
Al's the sister. Glenn and Terry, they just accidentally come across them. Like, yes. And that's why they have no idea what's going on, because it's just they played a record backwards. Well, it happened to be in Latin, which was like one of the check marks. And so it's just silly stuff like that. But it's also sad, like, because like there's little things here that really play in, like Terry's mom's dead.
Yeah.
And it's not even a factor until like when there's like this kind of haunted, smoky thing, and like then there's Terry's mom, and he's like, "Mom," like it's just like there's some heavy stuff in this movie. The dead mom, the parents, like again back in like demon
abandoning their children.
Not only abandoning them, but when they come back, they're like trying to kill them.
Yeah.
And of course it's all part of this facade, and like the zombie that lives in the wall and
busted out the wall when you thought
and when he gets
everything was done,
and like people get snatched up, like Terry gets snatched up and turned into a demon and bites Glenn, and Glenn's got an eyeball on his hand. It's like, does this movie make a lick of sense? No. This movie makes no sense at all.
No.
We don't know why it happened. We don't know how it ended. Like, but it's still, I was 8 when this movie come out. I didn't see it in theaters, but I remember watching it at home, and it's still one that I'm like, obviously at my age now, it doesn't affect me, but it's one of those that it's like, it's fairly safe to, like, if I wanted to show my kids, even my 10-year-old, I feel like it's safe enough. Like, go ahead. Actually, I was watching it, and he caught part of the end of it, where you got the stop motion claymation demons. But still, I really like this movie. I'm going to shut up because it's your film, and I just keep rambling.
No, you're fine. I feel we've covered it I mean, I feel like we've covered it pretty well.
We have, and it's definitely worth a watch. Like I said,
yes,
you're not going to find it the best movie you've ever seen or the scariest movie, but it's if you're wondering like what does a movie that just smells like the 80s look like, this is the movie for you. So, would you grade it?
I gave this one an A-. Just it doesn't mean that I don't like it, but I just I don't know. I feel like the 80s movies never get really high grades for me, just because
you gave it an A-.
Yeah, very true.
I gave it a C.
Oh,
I really like this movie, but it's nothing special. Like it's.
I just thought it was so fun.
Oh no, it is fun. I'm not taking anything away from it, but again, it's a fun ride, but it's nothing special. Like maybe
it was the cute little demons that got me.
And it could have been, because I look at this and I'm like, of the 3 movies we've covered so far, like it's nowhere near the quality of Black Coat's Daughter,
right?
Or Behind the Mask,
correct?
But it's also, to me, like it's nowhere near as fun as Behind the Mask either. So for me, it's an average film. Like it's that's how I viewed it, and I'm not taking anything away from your grade, but I didn't want you to be like, sorry, it's so low, and I'm like, oh, it's light years ahead when I graded it, because again, it's a fun movie, but the acting's horrible.
Yes.
The special effects are pretty bad, but overall, it's a fun, that was a fun movie.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, fair enough. Wednesday we shuffled. And we landed on George Romero's Martin. George Romero directed Night of the Living Dead, Day of the Dead, Dawn of the Dead. He did the original Crazies. Like he's a very prolific filmmaker, and one of the things that makes George Romero movies really stick out is there's always some sort of social commentary involved. Like you remember Night of the Living Dead, where the hero was a black guy, and that was very unheard of in the 60s, to have a bunch of white people in the in Pennsylvania, but a bunch of white people relying on a black man to survive. And then you got Dawn of the Dead, which is all about consumerism, and so we get to Martin, which is it's an underviewed Romero movie, but George Romero's built up a lot of respect prior to a movie like this, and so this movie, it's slow. It's a slow film for sure.
Yes.
And so the real question for this movie is Martin a vampire or not?
I mean, he drinks people's blood.
Right. But this is a movie about a man, Martin, who says he's a vampire.
Yeah.
He doesn't have fangs. He drugs his victims and then cuts them and drinks the blood from their wound. So he's out during the day. Nothing about Martin says he's a vampire.
And this is the first vampire movie we've watched.
Is it?
We've not really watched any vampire movies.
We did Lost Boys, didn't we?
Oh, yes. This is the second one.
Right.
Yeah.
And so this movie, again, clearly Martin is troubled.
Mm-hmm.
He lives with his uncle, I believe, and his uncle is like, I wear all white, I carry a rosary and Bible around with me all the time. And even calls Martin Nosferatu. Like he calls him a vampire.
Mm-hmm.
And where this movie is fun, in my opinion, is Romero did a really cool job of the movie's in color, except when Martin is foreshadowing is not the right word. When he's mentally playing out how he wants a scene to go,
having these little visions.
Yeah, he's got
thing.
and again, but it's not a supernatural kind of thing. It's here's a boy who's troubled and thinks he's a vampire. He calls into a radio show as the vampire. People are calling in. He's out there. Nobody knows who he is as a person outside of this. But he's got this mental like movie playing in his head of how successful he is at all this.
Yeah.
And that plays in black and white. So he'll like come into a room and it's all black and white, kind of grainy, and everything he does is successful and it's done the way a vampire would do it. And then we cut back to reality, and it's very rarely as smooth as he plays it out.
Yeah.
It's always bumbling of he'll come into a room and this woman sits up and she's just like, and he takes her. Well, then he comes into a room and it turns out she's like cheating on her husband, and there's a guy there now. And so here's Martin's not prepared to handle a man. He's prepared to handle this woman. And so it's just, it's got a bad reputation. Like it wasn't released in England for a long time. It was viewed as what they called a video nasty, just socially and visually not a film they wanted to show. But that's really what it is. Is Martin a vampire or not? Like, because obviously vampires aren't real.
Right. But
here's a movie where he thinks he's a vampire, so he carries razor blades, and like it's really kind of tough to describe. Or he calls himself the Count when he calls into the radio station.
Yes.
But it's really hard to kind of describe how it goes, but really it boils down to we're following him. He thinks he's a vampire. He goes on these kills, but they're just like slasher kills. Like it's not your vampiric, I come in you in the night. I come in as a bat or in the fog or whatever. But it doesn't end well for Martin.
No.
He does find a woman, then with that, it kind of, he like they get intimate together, and it kind of takes his attention away from the vampire thing. But now he's afraid he's going to go through withdrawal, so he goes and kills a couple of homeless people anyway.
Yeah.
Like it's just this weird, this kind of this weird thing. So, it's I don't know. What'd you think? What'd you grade it?
I gave it a C because like I didn't love it.
Right.
But it wasn't bad.
Yeah, I gave it a C also. And this was definitely, in my opinion, probably a passion project. George Romero has come out and said he's passed away now. I've met the man. He's a lovely man. But he's come out and said that this movie was his favorite of all of his movies. But it's also like not the most like critically favored of his movies.
Yeah.
And so I do. I think it's one of these like I wanted to make this movie. I built up enough clout, that and so. Yeah, it is. It's fine. Like, if you've watched a lot of horror movies and you haven't seen this one, give it a watch. Yeah. Like, it's a box you can check, but it's not going to scare you. It's not going to make you think. It's not going to shock you or surprise you. It's just a ride. Like, hey, here's a guy who thinks he's a vampire, but he's not. And let's see where this goes. So
yes.
But yeah, I gave it a C as well. It's just, it was fine. So, all right.
Next one.
My pick.
Yes. And this is the one. I hope I watched the right one.
You did.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I'll let you take the role here.
Oh, I love this movie so much. Last week, after we had watched For the Sake of Vicious, you had mentioned, if you're wanting it for gore, this is 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
And I said, wait till you watch it.
Oh my goodness! Yes,
we watched Peter Jackson's Dead Alive. May some other time see it as Brain Dead. The story
that's where I was confused because I searched Dead Alive and then it came up Brain Dead, so I was like,
nope, it's the right one.
Okay,
it's just America doing what America does.
Right.
A movie about a man who wants to break free of his mother and find romance on his own, but unfortunately can't do it because of the power of the Sumatran rat monkey.
Yeah. And you know what this rat monkey looked like? This rat monkey looked like the demons in The Gate.
Pretty close, yeah.
It also was
stop motion,
cute.
Made of clay.
Yeah. I loved it.
The Sumatran rat monkey was actually taken from Skull Island, the home of King Kong at the beginning of this movie. That's where they were. and taken back to New Zealand to be put in a zoo. And Lionel, his mother has got him under her thumb, hardcore.
Oh man.
And meanwhile, you got Paquita, who works at like the local shop bodega kind of place. Family, or I don't like to use the word gypsies. It's a little bit, it's not a good word to
Right, but
say.
I feel like when this movie was filmed, that's kind of like what they
kind of what they
like,
were.
not in a bad term, but that's
Like Grandma reads tarot cards like all the time.
Yeah.
And so Paquita has been said that, oh, you were going to cross paths with a man, and here's the symbol, and it ends up being Lionel, and
I love how she's so sorry, I just cut you off. But
go for it.
I love how she's so annoyed when he comes in.
Oh,
he's
just
knocking stuff down.
rolling, and
she's seen him before, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, he's back!"
Right.
Like, we've got to pick everything up.
Especially
and then
as
he
she's
drops the pens, and
and she's trying to like flirt with like the meat man, and she's all like pulling her off her shoulder, and like she's so cute. And so they go on a date to the zoo, and the mom follows them. Well, the mom ends up getting bitten by the rat monkey, and then now she's infected.
And she deserved it.
She did. She's awful. She's an awful.
Oh my goodness. I can't stand her.
Yeah. She's a terrible person. And so she gets sick. And Lionel has to take care of his mom. But he also has to balance this relationship with Paquita while keeping what's going on with his mom quiet. She's in this women's welfare league, and they have people over, and then they have to leave. And long story short, mom gets really sick. Mom dies. The nurse comes to tend to mom. The nurse dies. Like, it's just death in his wake. And Lionel...
Can we talk about when mom and her two friends are eating soup?
Yeah. Oh no, it's custard.
Custard. Yes.
He hadn't a good custard in years. Curtis and I, my co-host from Let's Talk About Flicks, we quote this movie all the time. All of it.
I was unwell watching this.
I know, wasn't it great?
Like, I love to pop a good pimple. Oh my goodness. It is my favorite thing. Like, listeners and viewers, every day when Casey gets in the shower, I'm like, do you have any pimples I can pop? Like, it's an everyday thing. It's disgusting, I know, but he knows it's going to cheer me up, and so
he's like rubbing sausage grease on his shoulders, just
he's like, want to see if I have any pimples? I'm like, yes, I do. So I'm sitting watching this, and it's busy in our house, so kids already had supper, husband's already had supper. I'm eating leftover Cajun shrimp pot pie, and I'm eating it, and they're eating the custard.
Mm-hmm.
And Casey was standing here watching it with me because I'm just playing it on the iPad. And I take a bite, and like the pus and the ear and everything is in their custard, and the blood is soaking into the custard. And he's like, it's so good. And I'm like, I'm gonna puke.
That was the scene that was on when I was watching it, and my daughter was eating breakfast, and so she's like, "What are you watching?" I'm like, "Dead Alive," and so I'm watching. And she like that scene. She's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna go upstairs. This movie's too much." And it's not even done.
Gagging. He's gagging next to me, like he's covering his mouth, like so disgusting. I'm like, I'm done. Like, I'm no longer hungry for the night. I'm going to just throw this away. Because when she bites into her ear and she chews it and I'm eating a piece of shrimp.
Yeah.
No, I'm done.
I love this movie so much. And that's just tip of the iceberg. Like, like it's
just the tip of it.
The sound design in this movie, the creative kills in this movie. It's funny. It's just a masterpiece of filmmaking.
Yeah.
Absolute masterpiece. It really, the plot doesn't matter. It's just let's make a movie where we can make it as gory as humanly possible. Mm-hmm. And it succeeded. You said, oh, if you like gore for the sake of vicious, That movie is nothing compared to this
Yeah,
one.
and they're totally different, I
Oh
feel
yeah, like
like.
this is fun. Like
Yes.
this is top to bottom. It's just
Yeah.
creative. Like when all the zombies are sitting at the table eating and he's having to feed them, and like the punk zombie, he like shoves the fork through the back of his head, and then another zombie reaches over and takes the
Yeah.
food off of that spoon, and and how the nurse zombie's head flips backwards because she had her head ripped back, and so like she's eating and it's like oozing out of the throat rip
I
to
love it.
oh it's so
I
good.
love it. And like, meanwhile, when you were talking about the one who had like shoved the
Yeah.
fork back, Leo walks into the room and he's like, he can't eat because he doesn't have a fork. And like, he thought it was so funny. And I'm
because
like,
it is. This movie's hilarious. Movie's hilarious. So even like when the mom, like Paquita comes over with her dog, and the dog goes upstairs to check on, like just to nose around as dogs do, and then they realize that like Lionel's mother ate the dog, and so she's like, "Your mother ate my dog," as she's literally like he's pulling and pulling and pulling this rotten,
oh, yes.
just pulling it. Like, just when you think he's done pulling, he keeps pulling it out of her throat, and he's holding it. She's like, "Your mother ate my dog," and he looks and goes, "Not all of it."
And it's just this big old hairball.
Just this massive hairball. What are you grading it?
I'm giving it an A.
Oh, A+ for me. A+. Extra credit. Like, job well done. This movie is... it's amazing. Love this movie.
Yeah. Honestly, the only other movie to turn my stomach like this one is the cannibal one that we watched last year.
Uh-huh.
What was that one? Like where they rip the tongue out and eat it?
Oh, what was that? A for you, A+ for me. You talk about the next one while I'm looking that up.
Okay, all right. The next one was my pick, and it was The Taking of Deborah Logan. This is like a TikTok one that I have found, and I've seen it on TikTok, which we've talked about. Like some of the movies on TikTok are not scary.
Well, and I think I've shared it before. I know I've talked about it. Let me share my theory on TikTok recommendations.
Yes.
Now that I'm on TikTok and I've watched a few of them, I think I've shared it with you before. I don't remember if I've shared it out loud, but if I have, so be it. Nobody's going to get on TikTok and say, you should watch Halloween.
Right.
Nobody's going to get a TikTok and be like, you should watch Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, Dracula. Like nobody's... So I think TikTok reviewers try to find a mostly obscure title.
Yes.
That they liked enough to throw it out there in hopes that nobody's talking about that movie. Because nobody's going to hop on there and be like, hey, you should check out the new movie In a Violent Nature. Because it's a new movie. But if we were to do a TikTok on why people should watch Popcorn, like that's a movie that doesn't get talked about very much. So that's my theory on TikTok reviewers. I think a lot of them are like, I need to find something obscure because everybody knows to go watch Psycho. True. Everybody knows to go watch The Exorcist, The Shining. Mm-hmm. So me saying to do that's not going to mean anything. But if I can share something like, hey, you guys need to go watch Frankenhooker, somebody's going to be like, Frankenhooker, never known it, what? And then might go find it. So that's my theory on that.
Very true. Yes. So
I'm still looking for that movie.
You're good. So Taking of Deborah Logan, we've got this like another college like film crew that is looking and researching on Alzheimer's. And so we've got this mom and her daughter who are in financial situation. So they've taken it on, and the mom has Alzheimer's. So she's, and we just kind of find out like some weird things happen. They're setting up all of these cameras in the house, and it gives off to me like in the nighttime like a Paranormal Activity vibe a little bit, just because like she's walking, she ends up disappearing, and later in the movie we find out she was a very successful lady creating the switchboard, and which leads to some other issues that we find out. and she's like she's possessed. Like she's got this like entity almost in her,
right,
that is forcing her to do these types of things,
well,
like taking children. And
the movie reveals this lore
yeah,
that doesn't. It's almost like a B plot that becomes the A plot of like there was this murderer and he had to kill 7 people. You know, it's just this.
yeah,
And it's like it turns out, yeah, mom knew the guy.
yeah.
It's just this. It's weird.
It was, and it's creepy just because it does talk like it gives very much off like a documentary type vibe about this lady, but
about
you know
Alzheimer's, really.
right?
Like that's what it was.
About
They're
Alzheimer's,
tracking the effects of Alzheimer's.
yes. And she just deteriorates so quickly, and that that's
with side effects that aren't Alzheimer's
yes.
side effects.
They are like haunting.
Like she's tearing her skin off. And,
yes. Oh, ouch. Kidnapping. Yeah.
The Green Inferno, is that the cannibal movie you're talking
yes.
about?
Yeah. Yes. Yep. Look at you.
I'm on it. I'd seen this movie. I'd seen this movie a couple times before, just shuffling. And so this definitely packs a better punch the first time you've seen it.
Right.
It's very predictable.
Yeah, it is. Like it is.
Like once they lay out that B plot, you're like, I know where this is going. Also, there's a lot in this movie, and I think the paranormal activity comp was a good one. There's a lot in the taking of Deborah Logan that doesn't seem remotely realistic. Now, don't get me wrong. Obviously, some of it isn't. Like the whole like snake thing.
Yeah.
But with Paranormal Activity, like that couple, they're carrying that camera around all the time. Like it's almost like a character in itself. Yeah. Like they make us very aware that there's a camera so they're doing all their own filming. Taking Deborah Logan is like, I don't know of any hospital that's going to let you set up remote cameras around a patient's room. You know, like that kind of stuff. Yeah. It's like, you gave them permission to film, but it's like, you guys brought a camera and put it up in every corner of every room. Yeah. Like that's just, that's what I mean by that's just not realistic. Like that, that's not how this works. Right. Like if you have a film crew, it's because they're filming. It's not because we have put this home under surveillance. Right. It's like they turned it into like Big Brother. And it's like that's not how movies like this work. So I think the idea was there, but they just took it a little too far to be like, well, let's put these cameras up, and it's like, but you guys are college kids. Like you don't have the funding to lay dozens of cameras out wherever you want. No, grant or no grant, because like it's like no, that you had so many cameras, and nothing happens in this film unless a camera's on it. Yes, and that also differs from Paranormal Activity, where there's a lot going on in another room, sounds going on, so it's like there's a lot of reactions to things that are off camera. But in this movie, everything happens on film. Yep. So it's like it's just too convenient to be taken seriously. In my opinion. So I had really high hopes for this one. I'm not saying I didn't like it. I enjoyed it, but I had really high hopes. But I gave it a B-. I gave it a C. Okay. Again, I've seen this movie a couple times before. The first time I watched it, I was like, okay, like a creepy old lady. I see what you did there. Like that's fine. Yeah. Showing her early on in full health mode let us really associate the deterioration. Yes, and that was the scariest part. Yeah. Like, I have watched someone get Alzheimer's and just watch their brain deteriorate, and that alone was the scariest part of the movie. Right, like this Deborah Logan character reminded me a lot of like the grandma in The Visit. Yes, I'm happy you said that, because I also like, she was just so very like prim and proper. Yeah. And you want this, and then it's like, now I'm nailing the window shut and open them. Yeah, like, when you see her start to slide towards the deep end, you're like, oh, this isn't fun. Like just because they're you just don't want to see that. But
Yeah.
but not a C. Like I said, it doesn't um, it doesn't have the same effect as it did the first time. So that takes a little bit away from it. I think
Yeah.
it gets super goofy in the end with
Yeah.
the whole like we end up in a cave, like just
Yeah.
that. It's a stretch. It's a stretch. So, but no, I agree with you. This is like the epitome of like a TikTok film. It's a
Yeah.
movie. People watched it. You know, it and now someone is like, oh, you got to watch this movie. It's the scariest movie
Mm-hmm.
ever. They're not telling it because they're not. The only thing they want is clicks. That's all they
Yeah.
want is views and clicks. So
Mm-hmm.
overall, it's an average film. We'll get to the rankings later, but it is what
Yeah.
it is. So go ahead and take Repulsion 2. I figure I rambled about Martin and Dead Alive. So
Man, you are brave for letting me take this, especially pre-show. I'm like, I don't remember anything about Repulsion.
Oh, fair enough. Fair enough.
We've got this girl who is like repulsed. I guess repulsion. Like she's just
She's really turned off by men.
yeah, not
But
not into him at all.
Yeah, but not in an asexual way,
Yeah.
not in a homosexual way. She's just like she's
Yeah.
just lives in fear of men.
And
naturally she's a beautiful blonde. Like that's
yes, she is. She is the girl next door. Yes.
Which means she's getting a lot of male attention,
Mm-hmm.
which makes this Repulsion, because it's like if you were to cast some like super uggo that doesn't get any male attention, who cares if she's like, you know what I mean? Like that you lose that with the character of like, oh, she's repulsed by men. Why? Because no one talks to her. No,
Right,
this woman gets a lot of attention.
Yeah. And her sister's new boyfriend, she does not like.
No.
And so this just almost
it's because he's married for one.
Yes, but yeah. It sends her into like a daze type.
Like she really hits
depression.
It's just like it's just a fog. Like it's like she's gone on some sort of like trip, you know, this mental like trip, but again, it's just odd. It's a Roman Polanski film. He did The Tenant. We didn't really care a lot for that. I did Rosemary's Baby, which is pretty much the pinnacle of his horror work. But it really falls into that of here's Roman Polanski again talking about life in an apartment. And if you are a highbrow cinema critic, which we are not, these are the kind of movies that you gravitate towards because you're like, oh, I get it. When people are watching like, but it's boring. You're like, but I get it.
Yeah.
Like, look, like I'm all high and mighty.
Yeah.
And I would mention pre-show that I think movies like this, because, well, Roman Polanski made it, it must be good. That I think a lot of critics are afraid to say their true thoughts because he's one of the cinema masters. You know, Martin Scorsese, Francis Ford Coppola, like those are others that are like, those guys crank out amazing films, and they do. So when they crank out a duds, it's like everyone's like, well, we must not understand it.
Yeah.
Because they're a master. I'm like, no, sometimes you just have a bad game.
Yeah.
Sometimes you put out a bad movie.
Yeah.
You
know, airball a few shots and that's okay.
And so Repulsion, I think, is definitely a movie that, you know, I took a class in college and it drove me nuts because I guess I understood the purpose of the class, but it drove me nuts because it was all about the critic's view. And so we would read a short piece, and then in groups we would be like, okay, I want you to tell us from a feminist viewpoint about this movie. I want you to tell us from a socialist viewpoint. I want you to tell us from a communist viewpoint. And I'm sitting there the whole time thinking like, either the author of these works is so far ahead of us, genius-wise, that they can write one story, but they have all of these hidden messages that satisfy all of these levels of critique. Or we're just pulling smoke out our butts because we want to view it a certain way.
Yeah.
Because we want to pat ourselves on the back and be like, nobody saw it the way I saw it.
Yep.
And then other people are like, oh crap, I didn't even think about that. Okay, yeah, I'm on his side. I
Uh-huh.
see it that way. That's how I feel about some of these films. If you're going to make a film, and to do whatever you want, but if you're going to make a film, you have to, like, either tell the story or tiptoe. It's like I'm watching this and I'm like, this movie was boring.
Yeah, it
boring.
was. And it was the first one that I watched for that week. And like
Yeah.
I said, like I've watched, others since
Yeah.
then. And it's just like, I really don't remember much about it. Like I know that her sister and her married boyfriend go on vacation and
Right.
she locks herself in her apartment and just goes mad.
Right. Like she takes a rabbit out and she just she just leaves it.
Yeah.
Like,
and it's just,
and again, like, because like you said, Carol and Michael, Helen and Michael, the sister and the boyfriend, they leave, leaving Carol there. But again, there's a lot of Michael's stuff around, like his shirt, his toothpaste, toothbrush, or whatever. It's like, and just that stuff being around just makes her physically sick. Like she vomits. And then she starts seeing things. Like she's losing it.
Yeah.
She's losing it. And every male that she encounters, like, it's almost kind of like Martin, where she's got what she think is happening. Like, oh, he's trying to attack me. When in fact, they're like, no, the guy's just coming to get the rent.
Yeah.
And you're being a freak about it. It's like, yeah, that landlord scene where, like, she's barricaded the door, so he breaks in. She pays him, but the apartment is like, it's just a pigsty.
Yeah.
That rotted rabbit's still sitting there. Well, this naturally he does get gross, or he does get gross, where he's like, hey, I'll let the rent go if you take care of me. Of course, she says no, so he tries to rape her, but then she kills him. Like, which it's like she is this whole movie. It's like we're watching her within a hallucination, and it's just really weird. Yeah. It's just I don't know.
It was just, I didn't love it.
I didn't either. Would you grade it?
I gave it a D.
I gave it a D as well. I've seen it. And the thing is, it's like, it was on the list. So whoever put that scratch off list together is probably one of these critiques. Like, whatever, dude. Like, you put it on the list and it's there. So we watched it.
Yeah.
Oh, well. Yeah. So, all right. Well, that brings up the fun part of the show where we get to list our class ranks. Remember, folks, this doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be in order of grades.
Yes.
They are in order of how we enjoyed them.
Yes.
Rewatchability, basically. All right, let's start at the bottom, number 7. I think we probably both have the same movie here.
Yeah, Repulsion.
Yeah. Repulsion was my number 7 as well. Number 6, what'd you have?
I had The Taking of Deborah Logan.
I also had The Taking of Deborah Logan at number 6. All right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Number 5?
Martin
was my number 5.
Wow.
Yeah, here we go. Number 4. The Gate was my number 4. All right, which means we have the same top 3, but I'm curious of the order of the top 3.
Yeah.
What was your number 3?
I had Dead Alive.
Okay, I put Blackcoat's Daughter.
Okay.
Now, don't get me wrong, I thought a fantastic film, but the other two scratch my itch a little more than this one does.
Yeah.
So Blackcoat's Daughter is my number 3. Almost pretty much 1A, 1B, 1C in this regard. But that's my number 3. What'd you have as your number 2?
My number 2 was Behind the Mask.
Mine was Behind the Mask as well. And my number 1 was Dead Alive, when yours is the Blackcoat's Daughter.
The Blackcoat's Daughter, yes.
Which is fair, because I gave 2 A+ for the week.
Yeah.
Dead Alive and Blackcoat. And so, again, it's just a matter of perspective. I absolutely love Dead Alive as a film. Like, just love the movie. If it was on every day, I'd probably watch it every day. It's so creative and so fun. It definitely grows on you with more viewings, because now you've gotten through it. You start looking around and seeing just some of the creative gore. Like, I love it when the baby, like, pulls the woman's face apart. And I love it when they shove the lady, like the
Yeah.
zombie lady, back onto the light fixture and make like a jack-o'-lantern out of her head. It's just
It's a good movie.
it's fun. It gets real corny at the end with the giant supersized mom, and
Yeah.
but that's
my top 3 honestly could have gone anyway.
right. Same way. Yeah,
like if I were just going for gore,
Yeah.
like rating it, you know, like it would have been different. So yeah.
Blackcoat's Daughter is by far a better film.
Yeah.
By far.
And it's more it is more my horror.
Yeah.
Than your, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I get you. And then Behind the Mask, it's just fun. Like it's just a fun movie that not one I would watch like every year, but one that it's like you could hop into it if you've seen it once and just pick it up and go. It's a fun film. It's a fun film. All right, well that was much more aligned than last week for sure. I was a little worried because I figured we would have Martin and Deborah Logan in different spots. I just wasn't sure we would have some of those question marks, but
the picture of Deborah Logan is far scarier than the movie. I see that and I'm like, oh, this is going to be good. Right. And then I watch it and I'm like, nah.
I got you.
Yeah.
All right. So for next week, do we want to?
I think we did tell.
Yeah,
last week, right?
We did. Yeah,
okay.
We did.
Yeah,
we can as well. On Sunday, our shuffle movie was The Scarlet Claw, a Sherlock Holmes and Watson film. So that was our Sunday shuffle. And then for Monday, I had picked Cabin in the Woods. What was Tuesday and Wednesday?
Tuesday, I picked the Banshee chapter. Mm-hmm. And then Wednesday, our shuffle is Severance.
Okay. Thursday, I had picked The Loved Ones. And what was your Friday?
Friday, I picked I See You.
And on Saturday, the scratch-off list was the original Final Destination. Have you seen that movie?
Nope.
Okay. So, Final Destination. Another very varied week. A lot of variants. We go old black and white, some straight to video, 2 that were in theaters. There's a little bit of everything here.
Speaking of theaters, is there a Terrifier 3 out?
Yeah, it came out. I know.
Okay.
We'll watch it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was just talking with someone about that the other day, and I was like,
yeah, it came out. I think it was number 1 at the box office too. It only had like a $5 million budget, and
wow.
Yeah, but Art the Clown's got quite the following. This one was released in October, but it takes place at Christmas time.
Yeah.
So I have a couple of friends that have seen it already, and they're like, if you like the first 2, that you'll like this one as well. So, and I'm still on the fence. I don't know.
I like the gore. I like the gore of Art the Clown.
Yeah. The movies themselves were the storylines are pretty lacking.
Right. They're like for the sake of vicious. Like they're just there for the gore.
Yeah. And
nothing else.
Yeah. Fair enough. So but yeah, we'll be back with those 7 movies next week. Social media wise, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. TikTok as well now. We're on TikTok, folks. So that'll be fun as we'll drop some shorts to hopefully kick you over to our YouTube channel so you can give us a listen. Do you have anything to say before we part?
Nope. Halloween is upon us, so have a good spooky season.
Yeah, we are 13 movies in for the month. So we're recording this on the 18th. So we're a little bit behind, but who cares?
We'll got this.
So, all right. Well, you guys have a good rest of your week, and we'll see you next week when we cover 7 more movies for Education. I'm Mike.
And I'm Courtney.
We'll see you then.
Bye.